Hey folks, it's Doug Henschen, VP and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research, covering data to decisions.
And I'm Dion Hinchcliffe, VP and Principal Analyst, covering future of work and CIO topics. And we're your co-hosts for episode 61 of Constellation TV. We're here to cover news and trends in enterprise tech. This week, Liz will share an interview with news on AI developments around Dynamics 365.
And in our closing segment, we'll be joined by our colleagues Larry Dignan, Holger Mueller, and Liz Miller to offer perspectives on the biggest developments in tech during the first half of 2023. But first, let's get to the news and bring in Larry Dignan, Editor-in-Chief of Constellation Research Insights.
Hey there.
Hey, welcome, Larry. So you've been churning out a lot of coverage. Folks should check it out on ConstellationR.com on the Insights tab. What do you got?
So the thing I'm looking at in the next few weeks is going to be tech earnings. Notably looking for where cloud computing demand is. Waiting to see how many times vendors can crowbar generative AI into conference calls. And just kind of looking at IT spending overall. The first quarter had, a few rough spots, and, revenue growth was kind of anemic. But generally speaking, people were expecting the worst. So anything that wasn't the worst looked a little better. The second quarter set up much differently in that it's a little unclear how demand is shaping up. And there's also, the stock market's had a nice run and things are kind of baked in as if the worst is over. So it's going to be very interesting to see not only what companies say about demand and what CXOs are buying or not buying, as much as the reaction to those results. So it's just going to be interesting to see, companies like Microsoft with Azure, Amazon, Google, you just kind of go down the list. And it's just going to be very interesting to watch this quarter because
and for me,
not really clear how it turns
data
out.
Platforms like Snowflake and Databricks. Snowflake in particular, kind of a bellwether. I've done a lot of research this year on cloud cost optimization, and data warehouse platforms are real ground zero for those efforts.
Yeah, and I think those companies, the data platforms, are interesting because they sort of just got their reports out of the way. So we know they shook out pretty well with really strong demand, and they all had their conferences of late that you covered a lot of. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting just to see how people, think through the results and whether they're better than expectations or not.
It was interesting, Larry. I just finished a CXO survey for digital IT buyers. You'll see the data for that soon, and hopefully we'll cover it in Insights. But what was interesting is for leading CIOs, there was a very low concern about cost. This was very different than the conversations we were having with our CIO network earlier in the year. Only 6% were reporting that cutting costs was a top business priority. So, yeah, it's interesting. It seems like a lot of assumptions in the market have changed, and it will be interesting to see if it bears out in the second half.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of whipsaw kind of activity because I think, I mean, if you would have polled any of us at the beginning of the year, we all thought a recession was right around the corner. Mm-hmm. And now we all kind of hurry up, and now we're all waiting. And now we're like, well, maybe there won't be one. And, even the economic data is just kind of all over the place. It's kind of interesting to see, but I wouldn't be surprised if people go from, we're not worried about cost savings to, oh crap, we got to worry about cost savings again.
All right.
I just think we don't know where we are right now, or I don't think we're on solid ground regardless, whether it's IT demand, economic. I think it's all just a little murky right now.
Yeah, Dion, what's up in your world these days?
Well, probably the biggest thing that's happened last week in technology, we just came out of the 4th of July weekend, was the launch of Threads, which is a new Twitter competitor launched by Meta, but it's really closely tied in with Instagram. You have to have an Instagram account, and it kind of creates everything from there. And it now has the new distinction, which formerly was held by ChatGPT, of being the fastest growing app in history. So in just a few days, it garnered 100 million new user signups, and reviews have been mixed. I think the platform seems a credible competitor, and certainly the signups show it. But many others have attempted to create a Twitter clone in the market and haven't really been successful. This is the first one that is a real threat. And the significance for enterprises is that customers continue to want to get their information from channels they trust, and it tends to be social media more than corporate marketing. But with the proliferation of channels, it's very hard to tell how do you engage with your customers? How do you do customer support? We still see that Twitter has the dominance in terms of the number of politicians, the number of businesses that are on Twitter and actually respond and engage with their customers, especially the top brands. Absolutely. Companies like Disney and Nike are very, very socially oriented still using these channels. It just greatly makes it very complicated. And this has always been the problem with the digital in terms of businesses have trouble managing all these channels, and Threads is just going to make it more complicated and more challenging, but it's important. You can't not be there. Increasingly, if it looks like it has legs, and increasingly it does. So Threads was the big story. It shows that rapid app adoption is still possible, even for major social networks. So that industry is back in play again. There could be new leaders as the landscape changes. So that was the big story of the week, and we'll see how it bears out with the social media.
I'd be ready and willing to use a new platform, but they're still waiting for hashtag support, direct messaging, filtering just to your liked feeds. So I guess some bells and whistles to add. And
a decade and a half of development in Twitter, and so it's going to take them a while, I think, to get parity.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me was I viewed Instagram as like my only real private kind of social network. And now Threads came along, and now you have to be public. And as a user, I kind of look at it with a sense of fatigue, because I really don't want one more channel. If it weren't for our jobs, I'm not sure I'd pay attention to social at all anymore.
Yeah, I use social for business. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, it's a business use case, and with Threads, it looks like it's very whatever was big on Instagram seems to be big on Threads at the moment.
Well, I would want one that would be not one more, but would be a replacement for. So we'll see. I'm not sold yet, but anyway. In my neck of the woods, I'm still unpacking the blockbuster week before the July 4th break. I was at the Snowflake Summit in Vegas. I was at the Databricks Data and AI Summit later that week in San Francisco. Both vendors are saying to their customers, we are your platform for data. Use it for everything, including AI development, including cloud native apps, including streaming applications, including data sharing and data monetization. But I'd say their strengths are still lie in their roots. With the Databricks Summit really shining as an event for data scientists. They went back to their wheelhouse in data science, and they really strutted their stuff on AI, on model development and deployment. They had a nice acquisition of Mosaic AI to advance development of custom generative models. They highlighted customers that are doing AI on their platform today, like JPMC and JetBlue and Rivian. Larry, I know you covered quite a few of those developments. And in the same way that Databricks, the last few years, has been trying to make its case for its data warehousing capabilities, Snowflake, at its event, was trying to make its case for its data science capabilities, which are really in development. And the big announcement they made, Snowpark Container Services, for supporting custom AI model development, for supporting native apps, is really in private preview, not likely to be in GA for more than a year. So, I would give Snowflake the edge on areas like development of its data and app marketplace. It's the only marketplace with built-in support for monetization and payments. But it has to lean on partners for data science, and those real capabilities like container services, Unistore, transaction capabilities are in private preview, maybe as long as a year away. So any thoughts on those two events?
When do you see these three colliding? I mean, they're obviously nibbling around the edges of each other's core turf. And do you think they'll collide, or is this just a case of
the third you're meaning is MongoDB, which also talks about its platform for data, but they come at it from a very much more of a development, app development platform, and they're adding things like analytics. I really think they're all talking this, singing from the same hymn book. You can do everything on our platform. That's where you have your data, do everything here. But, the Databricks and Snowflake don't have transactional capabilities. Snowflake may be a little further ahead in developing that with its Unistore platform announced last year, but still in private preview. Databricks says they'll get to that. I don't think they're really concerned about that right now. They need to make hay with AI while the sun shines. So I don't see them colliding really anytime soon. And I really doubt that MongoDB, even though they're all saying the same sort of thing, that MongoDB and on the one hand and Databricks and Snowflake on the other would really encroach on each other's turf very much.
Yeah, I kind of see a scenario where the average large enterprise is probably going to have all three running around somewhere.
That's already the reality, I think.
Yeah, every one of these vendors now has to have a capable platform that does almost everything, at least to some degree, and they have to be able to play well with others, and so you can mix and match it well. And that's a tall order to do well, but and that's going to limit the number of players in each one of those spaces. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, and even Snowflake with its container services announcement, kind of talking to people behind the scenes, there's a little wink that they could bring in transactional database service capabilities into native apps if Snowflake itself doesn't really deliver with Unistore of really real-time transactional capabilities, which really hasn't been its focus. It's been all on analytics. But listen, guys, that's all the time we have for the news this week. Stay tuned for Liz's interview with Microsoft Dynamics 365 executive and our roundup of the biggest developments in tech during the first half of 2023.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm joined by Linda Simovic. Am I getting your name? Am I saying that even remotely correctly?
It's Simovic.
Simovic.
Like there's an invisible H.
Yes, I love it. Well, I apologize. For that.
Thank you.
But welcome to CRTV. I am so glad to have you here today. We are going to be talking about. So I don't know if you've heard about this, and I like to ask people when they join us on CRTV. Have you heard about this thing called AI? It's this new thing. It's this newfangled thing. We're going to talk about it. We're going to dig in. We're going to learn. But it is sure having a moment, right? But here's the thing. We all know that this is going to happen. And Linda, you and I have kind of been around this block a couple times to know that the spotlight's going to fade a little, the hype cycle is going to die down. And really everyone across CX, whether you sit in sales, service, or marketing, we're going to be left with this thing called an opportunity known as AI. And we're going to have to start figuring out where the rubber meets the road. And we got to prepare where we're going to really make this real and meaningful. So how do we actually start to plan and get going on AI so that it is productive, it is meaningful, and that it's real for our teams?
That is a really great question, Liz. And I can say that from Microsoft's perspective, we launched this thing called Copilot. And Copilot is really meant to help you do your job better. So it's not replacing anyone's jobs. It's just meant to be alongside of what you're doing for your job. And so that keeps the human in the loop. So AI isn't really hard to adopt because it's meant to surface new data to you, to help you capture new information and pull that back into your CRM. So we're really making it easier for enterprises and different companies. Just flip a switch and start trying it. So we have a lot of customers who are piloting this. Our own sales organization inside of Microsoft has already rolled out AI, and they're starting to use that. And we're starting to see those trends of what's surfacing and the usefulness, the productivity gains, and also just great feedback to help improve the product because we're iterating so quickly.
I love that. And I love that you guys are using it. I mean, it's like, hey, you got to drink your own champagne, right? Or is that, I think that's the one we're going with. So, what I really like as I've seen Copilot roll out, because you had kind of a first wave of an announcement earlier in the year, right? We started to see Copilot emerge. We started seeing things like Viva Sales. But now we're seeing kind of new incarnations and new applications of Copilot. And it's starting to come up and help the rest of us across the CX landscape. But what I find really interesting about this is we've kind of been focusing AI a lot on how do we as a brand communicate better and kind of up-level those ideas for how we connect and how we engage with our customer and with with that consumer. But I get this feeling that from Microsoft, you guys are also helping us tackle a relationship that's kind of gone under, I guess, talked about recently. I mean, we had those years of all the books of like sales and marketing. They're from Mars and Venus. How do we make them get along? But it seems like a lot of the new introductions are really about how we can get both of these groups to really be far more connected, collaborative, and working together for those ideas. So kind of how does that how did that come along, and where are we going with that right now?
I love that you're bringing this up, because this is core to our strategy and how we're thinking about it. There's really two layers to it. The first layer is the data. So you have all this customer data that starts pulling in all of those different departments because they're purchasing technology. Like you said, sales and marketing typically don't work together, but they work around the same exact customer data. And so our first part of our strategy is helping get all that data into one place so you can start doing stuff with that data. And then the second piece is having a connected journey between those two. And we've already started implementing a customer journey that's shared not just with marketing and sales, but we're extending that across the entire customer experience platform.
Love that. Love that. So, okay, I'm going to be super honest with you just for a second, Linda. I did a little digging into backgrounds. I'm going to call it light and gentle stalking, thanks to LinkedIn. I mean, so it's really your fault. My fault. Yeah, it's Microsoft's fault. It's Microsoft's fault. Let's blame them. So I'm going to admit, I may have looked into your background because I always believe that our past backgrounds really inform kind of a lot of the decisions that we make and a lot of the way we think about innovation and a lot of the things that we want to bring forward in a lot of these tools and technologies. And here's the thing I learned. Tell me, how did being a full stack engineer focused on vending machine and washing machines, how did that help? How is that guiding you? Are you finding that you're like, yes, we need AI to do that? Like that is a mundane task that no one should have to do.
Oh my gosh.
Tell me about that.
So I used to be an engineer. I was an engineer in this language called Perl. And Perl was really good at munging a ton of data together. So I got my first steps into my career working with lots and lots of data. And then it moved into customer data, and I was matching data using Perl. And that has been a problem since I think technology has been around. And it still continues to be a problem, amazingly enough. Like that was 20-something years ago. And that is still a challenge for a lot of companies, is getting all of their customer data into one place. So when I joined Microsoft, it was really exciting because as you saw from my background, I can't believe you saw that. I went deep.
I went deep, Linda.
Connecting vending machines together. We put credit card transactions on vending machines.
I love that. But it's like, but when I think of that, I mean, I laugh because when I saw it, I was immediately like, talk about where AI should really take over. Like, talk about where you really want that co-pilot to be the one who's like, hello, we've got a little temperature disruption over here in a vending machine, or hey, we want to be able to restock this. But that's really what we're talking about here. Like, I mean, it's so, I joke about that. I joke about that part of your background, but I mean, it really is kind of how we want AI to roll out, to be that co-pilot, to really be there to help us with that. We can't crunch that much data, and I don't want to know what that washing machine is doing right now.
Exactly. And that is 100%. I think the value of AI is no human can possibly read all of that information. You're not going to read transactional data, but there's trends in that data and there's insights from that data that we can surface up using AI. And that helps us as humans do our jobs better. So like any other tool, this is just another tool in our arsenal that we can use to do our jobs better. And that's how we're looking at Copilot.
I love it. I love it. You know what, Linda, thank you so much for joining me. And next time I'm going to have to go, I don't know if I can go much deeper in your background to pull up something for the next time we pull you onto CRTV. But thank you so much. And folks, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Hey folks, Doug Henschen here of Constellation Research, and we've passed the halfway point for 2023, so we thought we'd bring together a panel to discuss the biggest developments in tech thus far this year. I'm joined by my CRTV co-host, Dion Hinchcliffe, CR Insights Editor-in-Chief, Larry Dignan, and the other half of the CRTV team, Holger Mueller and Liz Miller. Welcome to everybody.
What's up, Doug?
The one rule we came up for this discussion is we didn't want to dwell entirely on generative AI. So with that caveat in mind, Liz, let's go ladies first and give the floor to you.
That's the end of this segment. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining, because nothing else has happened in 2023 if we can't talk about generative AI. No, seriously, I think generative AI, much to your point, Doug, and when we've all been discussing this, it has been a great door opener. And I think the thing that I have been most excited to see, at least in the world of CX, is that the door that this is opening is lots of other questions around what the heck of else we've been doing in AI, right? So I think all of the other AI motions, all of the models, all of the things that we've been trying to get off of the ground, we now have understood one critical thing. We have to be doing more with data. So I think in all of the customers that I've been talking to, both on kind of the end user side as well as on the vendor side, we're really doubling down on data. What should we be considering as part of this corpus of data? What should we actually be including? Hey, should we be connecting all that sales, marketing, and service data so that we can be asking better questions? I'm starting to see, of all things, and I never thought I'd be saying this as a marketer, we're starting to ask for things like RPA. Who would have ever thought that we would talk about robotic process automation and process mining in the world of CX? But we are. I think a lot of that has to do with, yes, generative AI has allowed us to ask different questions in a language that we all can understand, hopefully. But it has actually asked us to interrogate things differently. So first half of the year, if we see this data interrogation and this data collection kind of start to open more doors, I think H2 is going to be pretty darn exciting as we start to see some of those things come to life. But process and data, Doug, those are my two things.
And from my standpoint, where vendors before talked about developing their own AI capabilities, this generative wave has forced companies to bend over backwards to help companies use their own data, let them develop their own capabilities based on their data and use it and train with it privately, not in a public way. Holger, what's up in your world?
Hey, Doug, thank you so much. Yeah, I would only have one thing to minimize the time about generative AI. Please don't call these things large language models. Call them large knowledge model. That's what it's all about, which also should get some warning bells being going, because language processing masters is a long time. It's the knowledge. What can these language models really expose from that perspective? But really, the welcome change from all the AI hype which has been happening in quantum. Quantum is having a similar spring relatively like AI has, in the sense that a ton of new things have been happening in the vendor landscape in the first half of 2023, right? Let's start with some of the vendors there. IBM has been launching an ambitious roadmap how to multiply, triple, quadruple, order the magnitude of qubits in their quantum systems, with a big roadmap for the next 2-3 years, basically sandwiching them, or Lego bricking as I call them, all together. And with Honeywell, who is taking a different approach than IBM with their laser guided pieces, and they have productive running quantum systems. They launched the H2 machine. At the same time, we can look at things coming out both from Google, Microsoft, making significantly steps forward, not to mention all the other smaller quantum players who are in the space, and I might have forgotten some big ones. So watch the quantum space, significant progress in 2023.
Well, unfortunately, I also have to do a little bit on the generative AI, because it had a considerable impact on the future of work over the last year. So we saw over the last 6 months. So I've been taking briefings every single week since ChatGPT came out about how a vendor for digital workplace tools either has plans for AI, has added some very initial AI capabilities they plan on greatly expanding over the next couple of years. Everyone is adding AI to their employee experience and digital workplace products. And Microsoft itself has launched Copilot, very notably putting it right in the middle of the Windows operating system, for example. You can control Windows through giving instructions to AI. But we saw that in our recent digital CXO survey, that as all these new AI features get added, the most important takeaway is that a quarter of them, just under a quarter, are being blocked. Those features are being turned off because people are worried about losing their IP. That you go in to ask these AI questions and you're asking them very detailed questions that have, the functioning of your business right inside the question, has some of your IP and your critical methods located in the question, that's an issue. People are worried about as a product launch that we have coming up that would affect the market, and we're a public company that has creates a lot of concern inside a certain circle. So we saw both a lot of excitement from vendors to make sure that they're providing AI capabilities, a real gold rush. But we see caution when companies with this very powerful technology making sure that they're controlling it. But a lot of interest certainly in deploying this. I'm hearing from boards are putting a lot of pressure on CIOs to make sure that they're taking full advantage of the AI from a competitive standpoint. And CIOs are not sure where the long-term bets are. So that was the one big trend. And then the second big trend I saw this year is a real questioning about where cloud workloads should go. I have a major new report and study on this where we talked to a number of CIOs that are moving certain workloads back. And we discussed what that profile is, but there's now this kind of rebalancing, this more mature conception about where the best place a given workload could be. There's no one size fits all. From a cost and performance and security and control standpoint, you might want to put one workload in public cloud, another workload in private cloud, and you're going to use the best tool for the job. And that's a real sign of maturity if you ask me about the cloud market. And that was
Dion, I'm going to follow up on that one, but first let's go to Larry. Larry, save us from generative AI talk.
All right, so the thing that bugs me the most about the first half is we haven't figured out hybrid work at all. We had all these mandates where they were like, go back into the office, and people kind of went back, but not really. A lot of people ran back to the office just to do Zoom calls. This tug of war is very fascinating to watch, and I'm looking at, commercial real estate stocks and logs and all that kind of stuff and data, and it's pretty murky, which if you told me, a year after the pandemic sort of ended that we'd still be trying to figure out who's going in the office and when, I'd probably be a little surprised. So it's just interesting to watch the whole hybrid work thing, aside from, the AI implications and who you can automate and all that good stuff. I had to work in AI somewhere. But it's very interesting just to see that we haven't even, I don't think we're any farther along in figuring out the hybrid work thing than we were just a year ago.
Totally agree.
Which is kind of weird because we're a remote team.
Yeah, we've always
before
been
this.
Right.
Before this, I worked for a team that had people all over the world a few times, and we were all dispersed, and I don't think we met each other face to face for
I don't think our lives changed that much over the pandemic, but no conference.
Yeah, it was kind of like whatever. But the fact this debate still continues is probably one of my biggest surprises over the first 6 months of the year. And my guess is it's just going to continue until leases run out. Once leases run out, my guess is CFOs are going to be much more into remote work.
No, Larry, generative AI is totally going to solve it. Don't worry about it.
Yes.
They'll take over the lease too, man. It's going to be great.
Just what we need, a hybrid work co-pilot to go with my other 16 co-pilots.
All right, I'm going to close out here. My number one non-generative tech trend for the first half of 2023 was the rise of cloud cost optimization. And ground zero for that trend has been cloud data warehouse cost optimization. Customers are demanding better cost and workload management insights, analytics from their platform providers. Companies like Snowflake are getting dinged and forced to step up, and that obviously hurts their own bottom line. But in some cases, it's coming to the point, as Dion pointed out, that stable, predictable workloads are being moved back on premises. Number two trend I'm seeing is a real rise in streaming and real-time capabilities. All the incumbents I cover, Confluent, Databricks, Google, Snowflake, various data integration players are ramping up in this low latency area. There's an emerging cadre of open source oriented startups, including TikTok's by Comedy spinoff, Imply, which commercializes Druid, Startree, which commercializes Pinot, ClickHouse, the spinoff from the Russian search firm Yandex. My take, though, is that until you get to really sub-second needs and really extreme scale, you probably are not going to need a dedicated, very specialized streaming tech. The mainstream platforms are getting down to those, few seconds of latency. But any thoughts on those last points? Wow.
What was
Who
that?
took it up there? That was amazing. That was my thought. That was
That had to come from Germany.
that had to come somewhere. That was awesome.
I'm going to close it at that.
Something flying low over me, that was Germany, yeah. Sorry.
It was Holger.
So funny, Doug? You know what's here? Well, you know what's really funny about all of this is that I can't remember a time when any of us all got together and had so many conversations that it oddly involved building out new hardware.
Very true.
We just haven't. It just hasn't been a thing in these past couple of years. But darn it, if everyone wasn't talking about
It's all about the hardware.
It's all about the hardware, baby. And that's this. That's been the first half of 23. So it'll be interesting to see if that carries over.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for our first half of 2023. Thanks to Larry, Liz, and Holger for joining us, and thanks to all for watching. Well, that's a wrap for episode 61 of CRTV. Get set for our next episode in 2 weeks.
That's right. Our colleagues and partners in crime, Holger Mueller and Liz Miller, will bring you episode 62 of Constellation TV. In the meantime, be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and on Twitter at ConstellationR and at the hashtag CRTV Show.
And don't forget to subscribe to Constellation Research TV on YouTube and subscribe to CR Insights at ConstellationR.com to keep up with Larry Dignan's enterprise news coverage. Thanks for watching and have a great week. Okay.
All right, see you guys soon.
All right, so, okay.
No, I'm still here.
Okay, don't worry.
No, you can. Do you have a question?
You don't have to talk to me, Hannah. Where's my... Oh, here it is. So, Hannah?
Alrighty, we are at 12 minutes and 30 seconds.
Well, shit, the FCC
I have a recording error
going over
here,
on our live. Damn it!
Uh-oh.
Thank God Liz joined. Now we have some blooper
Did
coming.
you hear that, Hannah?
Oh, are we talking about airports?
Yes.
Oh, I just thought we were talking about issues, which, New York issues.
Who has issues? Come on.
We're talking about airport issues.
You are an issue.
No, it's 100 in Germany.
Oh.
No way.
That's not acceptable. That's, no.
Every day is the hotter day in record for the year. Every day personal best, yes.
I say the ground rules is we're not going to dwell on generative AI too much.
No, that's all I'm talking about, Doug.
Oh,
Generative AI days, Doug.
So we ready?
That's my update for the half year.